Hello everyone and welcome. This is Dr. Master Marino and I want to help you today to look through poetry practice. I'm still not sure what the AP test is going to look like this year, and I'm pretty convinced there's going to be a free response question, whether it's the open question, the poetry question, or the prose question, I don't know. Based on the reviews that the College Board is doing on YouTube, I think we need to be prepared for all possibilities. Maybe some are going to get one, not another. I don't know. So you could very easily practice with the poetries we've done throughout the year. That's not really the challenge at this point. The challenge is I want to look at a couple of things they might do on this test. And I'm going back to Evening Hawk by Robert Penn Warren, which was on the 2006 exam. This has been considered by many probably the hardest poem that anybody has seen on this test in a good 20-25 years. And even workshops that I've taken have talked about it. What I want to look at is what do you do if they give you a poem that's just this unbelievably difficult? Because you can still get through it. You see, the flip side is, as difficult as the poem was, the readers were apparently instructed to grade very leniently. Ultimately, when it comes to grading of these essays, readers are instructed to look at you and say, did you get it done or didn't you get it done? And that all comes down to, did you do what the task asked? So right now, if you want, stop the video, look up Evening Hawk by Robert Penn Warren, and then this way you can follow along. Okay, now you're back. If you look at the task at the very top of the page, okay, all of this in here, it's actually not asking for a lot. Read the poem, obviously, then write a well-organized essay in which you analyze how the poet uses language to describe the scene and to convey mood and meaning. And that's really the key to this. It's can you talk about mood and meaning in this section right up here. Mood, how does it feel? If you only got this done, you still got part of the job done. But every single one of these, part of the getting it done, is looking at this. It's the meaning. Did you analyze what Penn was trying to say here? It doesn't even have to be all of that complex. It's just got to be something. And when we see a poem this hard, we're in survival mode at this point. Now, are there people who could still take this and rock a 6 out of 6 on this? Of course they can. But for a lot of students, they're going to hit this and they're going to struggle. And the mistake that they're going to make is that they won't go to mood and meaning. They'll just try to summarize the poem. Doing so will no longer produce a thesis statement, and it will be a misuse of evidence. And then at that point, it's a 2 out of 6. But even just for getting a decent thesis statement out, you're almost guaranteeing a 3 out of 6, and you're putting yourself into a position for a 4 out of 6, which ultimately is not a bad goal. Now, with that said, let's read through the poem quickly. So from plane of light to plane, wings dipping through geometries and orchids that sunset builds, out of the peak's black angularity of shadow, riding the last tumultuous avalanche of light above pines and the guttural gorge, the hawk comes. His wings scythes down another day. His motion is that of the honed steel edge. We hear the crashless fall of stalks of time. Now stop right there because you probably already got confused. The most important thing to do in a poem like this, read the title. This is Evening Hawk. That's a big deal. Okay, it's the hawk that comes in the evening. You know that there is no biologically evening hawk. There are hawks. Are there different breeds and stuff? Sure. But this should tell you something right away. And then when you start to get to this line down here of he scythes down another day, right there, we should start to get a clue as to what's happening here, especially with the fall of time. The head of each stalk is heavy with the gold of our error. Look, look, he is climbing the last light, who knows neither time nor error, under whose eyes unforgiving the world unforgiven swings into shadow. Now, if you were starting to look for things like mood, and that might have helped you with this, you're going to notice words like black, shadow. So the mood is a dark mood. You could have spent the whole paper just writing about the mood. You might have still been able to get a 4 out of 6 on this. Let's look at the rest of the poem. My fault. Give me a second. Long now. The last thrush is still, the last bat now cruises into his sharp hieroglyphics. His wisdom is ancient too and immense. The star is steady like Plato over the mountain. If there were no wind, we might, we think, hear the earth grind on its axis, or history drip in darkness like a leaking pipe in the cellar. Now again, if you only wanted to look at mood, okay, words that come up, ancient. No wind. Grinding on its axis. Dripping in darkness. Leaking pipe. Cellar. You have so much here that's so dark, and I realize all of those lines are off, so we're not even going to bother with those. But they're so dark, you know, and so depressing, and that's enough. If you didn't figure out that literally by now that the evening hawk is not actually a hawk, that it's really just dusk, and that's what it's doing, is that it kind of glides over and it's destroying each day. You could have then gotten into a very significant meaning, you know, talking about things like hieroglyphics in ancient Greece and how, you know, the same, you know, darkness and the same fall of time happens throughout, whatever, doesn't matter. At the very least, had you gotten to mood and gotten to some idea about time passing, no matter what it was, you would have been fine. The mistake that people would have made is that they would have read this poem and they would have said, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm in a total panic. And they would have just tried to summarize the poem. It gave you the clue in the direction when it told you to talk about mood. You have to do what it tells you to do in that case. Now, this is really a worst case scenario. You could have survived a worst case scenario by just following, by actually doing what it told you to do. All right? So there's an assignment that's going to go along with this. Just read it in the classroom and check in because there's going to be another video that comes up very quickly.